BRZEN.
They're carrying her out. There's like 8 men involved in this. Going through a narrow hallway. I think we're on the fifth floor. I'm with a team of volunteers in Kharkiv, a city in eastern Ukraine that Russia has been brutally attacking since February. The men are evacuating a woman named Larisa from her apartment in Saltivka. It's the worst-hit neighborhood in the city. She can't walk, so they're carrying her downstairs on a stretcher. Since we got here, the shelling has been nonstop. They're navigating the turns with her. Going down. Navigating one turn. Oh, that one was loud. That actually shook the doors. This is Resistance, Stories from Ukraine. I'm Laurel Chor, a photojournalist from Hong Kong. In this series, I'm sharing personal stories of resistance that have emerged everywhere in Ukraine. Today, part 2 of our reporting on life under constant shelling in Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city, just 30 miles from the Russian border.
Еще чуть-чуть.
Couple more floors to go. She looks very calm, all things considered.
Да. Нормально идет?
Oh, that's loud. Seems to be getting closer. In our last episode, we met Larisa, who has multiple sclerosis and is paralyzed from the waist down. She hasn't left her apartment in years due to her disability, and it's become far too dangerous for her to be here. There's no elevator, so a middle-aged man named Vitaly is directing the other men as they move Larisa down 5 flights of stairs. They work carefully but quickly. That's the sound of my camera as I take photos following behind them. We're out. We've made it. We have to go past the double doors of the main door.
Меня толкайте. Опа.
The volunteers carry Larisa into the van and put the stretcher down gently. Vitaly tucks a pink polka dot blanket around her. Next, Larisa needs to get to the train station on the other side of the city, where she will begin a long trip west to Lviv and then on to Poland. Her cat, Katya, is coming with her. Where did the cat? Where did the cat go?
Все перекрой.
Where's the cat? The cat's in the box? That is loud rumbling. Oh, that's close. Yeah. Not everyone in Kharkiv can leave, and the risks of staying are clear when we visit the Zaitsev Surgical Hospital in the north of the city. Ivan, a 26-year-old medical resident here, gives us disposable shoe covers and protective aprons to put on. It looks like he's had a fresh haircut. He smiles sheepishly and tells us one of the hospital staff gave all the men the same look, shaved close on the sides, with longer hair up top. He guides us to a recovery ward where we will meet patients injured in the war. We're walking down the hallway. It's pretty dark. Only a couple lights are working. It's very Soviet. It smells like soup, actually.
It's a typical hospital borscht, like a cheaper
Hospital borscht.
Yeah. It's a cheaper one.
Borscht is a traditional dish in Ukraine. It's a pinkish red soup that owes its color to beetroot and is usually served with a dollop of sour cream. But here, workers are carrying metal canisters of borscht that look like they could be full of gas. Now we're heading up the stairs. Ivan shows us into the recovery room, where large windows let in soft sunlight.
Smells very sanitized, sterile. Hi, hello. Hi.
The first patient we meet is Vladimir, a man in his late 50s with gray stubble and a kind smile. He's a videographer by profession, and since the war started, he began volunteering with the Creative Forces of Ukraine, a Telegram group where artists offer their talents to support the war effort. His arm is in a sling, and there are bandages along his collarbone and ribcage. He says his house was destroyed by 2 large missiles.
Я сидел за компьютером, делал ролики.
He tells me he was home when the strike hit. He first heard a loud noise, the sound of metal crashing. And he remembers feeling a profound heaviness. And then, nothing. The blast killed his brother-in-law instantly. His mother was badly wounded. The whole family had to be pulled from the rubble. 10 days later, his mother died from her injuries.
Маме было 88 лет, она пережила вторую
She was
войну.
88 years old and had survived World War II.
Я думаю, что
The hardest thing for him, Vladimir says, is that his family of 5 is now 3.
How much longer do you have to stay in the hospital?
там видно.
We shall see, he says.
Ну, я думаю, знаете, как...
Despite everything he's been through, Vladimir tries to stay lighthearted. He jokes that shells don't hit the same target twice, and his shell already came.
How do you think you'll go on after you get out of the hospital?
Ну, буду заниматься видеосъемками, буду работать.
He hopes to regain mobility in his hand and to go back to his job making videos.
Жизнь будет продолжаться, все будет хорошо.
Life will be good, he says. Sitting next to Vladimir is Tatiana. She's thin and frail and clearly in pain. There are bandages all over her upper body.
What were you doing before the war?
She's 37 years old and lives in a village near Kharkiv with her mother and sister. She worked at a local factory before the war.
How did you get injured?
Tatiana was outside when cluster bombs began to fall. She tried to run away but couldn't take cover in time. Shrapnel pierced her lungs, making her lose a lot of blood. All of her ribs were fractured, and some had to be removed. She has a long road to recovery ahead. I ask Ivan, the young surgical resident showing us around, about the day the war broke out.
At
4:30 in the morning, he was woken up by the sound of explosions nearby. Bombs were dropping from the sky. Ivan lives in a dorm with other medical students, and people started to panic. They didn't know what to do. Ivan stuffed his backpack with some cash and his IDs. He ran outside and found complete chaos as people began to flee. But Ivan knew exactly where to go: the hospital.
Why did you decide to come to work?
In wartime, surgery and anesthesiology are of utmost importance, he says. When he arrived, most of the hospital staff were already here. They were deciding whether to go ahead with the scheduled operations. In the end, they postponed all surgeries and discharged as many patients as they could. They wanted to be ready for an influx of people injured by the bombs.
What has been the hardest thing for you?
Самое тяжелое, наверное, то, когда...
Yvonne says that war robs you of mental clarity. With the constant shelling, it's hard to focus. At any moment, someone could barge into the emergency room with life-threatening injuries, and his decision-making in those first few seconds is critical.
И во всякий раз, когда нам тяжело или...
It's not uncommon for hospital staff to have mental breakdowns these days. But Yvonne says every time he feels like quitting, he thinks about the soldiers on the front lines.
Has this experience changed your plans for your career?
Нет, не изменил, я все так же хочу заниматься
It hasn't. But Yvonne hopes that soon he will be able to work in peace. Back in Saltivka, Larisa's evacuation continues. She's lying on her stretcher in the van. Next to her are her belongings, packed into a few pink and white plastic bags, as well as the cardboard box containing her gray cat, Katya, who's keeping quiet for now. Larisa is upbeat and chatty.
Can you explain to us what is happening right now? Oh, that is loud.
She says she's on her way to join her relatives, who have already fled to Poland. There, she's going to live in a specialized refugee center for injured or disabled people. I'm kind of taken by surprise by what she says next. She wants to set the record straight. She insists she's not leaving because of the war. She says she's going abroad in order to get better medical care. At first, I assume she's saying this as an act of resistance against the invaders. But then I wonder if she's just in denial.
Why is it important for you to say that you're not fleeing the war?
I'm used to war now, she tells me. Though she admits it's been scary staying in her apartment all alone. Artillery shells, grad rockets, phosphorus bombs, ballistic missiles, cluster bombs on parachutes. They've all fallen on Kharkiv, she says. I ask her how she was able to get food and supplies for herself throughout all of this. Larisa says that, unlike a lot of the elderly in her building, she has a smartphone, so she was able to join a Telegram channel to order supplies for herself and her older neighbors too. She wants to say she's really grateful for the volunteers, those who brought her food and those evacuating her. Despite the risks and the fear, the people of Kharkiv pulled together and helped each other survive. You feel this sense of community all over Kharkiv, even underground. Thousands have taken shelter in the city's metro system, which was built after the Second World War and was designed to withstand a nuclear attack. At the entrance to the Constitution Square metro station in the historic part of Kharkiv, we meet a 19-year-old woman named Violeta. Her long blonde hair is in a high ponytail, and she's wearing a Christmas sweater, pink pajama pants, and lime green Crocs. She offers to take us down to the platform that's been her home for weeks.
We are walking down into the metro. We're walking past an underground mall of sorts, a bunch of little shops that have all been shuttered.
Violeta is a new mom. She went into labor on the 25th of February, the day after the invasion began. When her water broke, she had already been sheltering in the metro station. She was rushed to a hospital where she gave birth to her son. She named him Bogdan. We take a long, long escalator down towards the platform. The air is damp and cold.
There's a civilian checkpoint of sorts asking for our press cards.
Next to the subway tracks, people have set up mattresses, camping tents, laptop stands, and stacks of supplies like water jugs. The train cars are parked at the platform, and they've been turned into bedrooms. From the outside, you can see toiletries and drinking cups lining the windows.
She's just pulled open the door. We're going onto the train. Oh, hello. Oh, there's a dog. Of course there's a dog. Hello, it's a Cocker Spaniel. Hi. Very friendly Cocker Spaniel.
The seats are now beds, with blankets neatly folded away for the day. People have claimed little corners for themselves, their clothing hanging from the railings and their belongings, like hot plates and slippers, carefully organized on the ground. We follow Violeta to the end of the car, where she set up an air mattress. Her baby products are on the seats to one side, and on the opposite seats, she keeps a small pantry of non-perishable food. Violeta's pasted an assortment of flyers to the windows for some privacy. It's dark in here, so she turns on a small table lamp.
How long have you been sleeping here?
2 месяца.
2 months. She came here on the first day of the war and returned after giving birth to Bogdan.
Is your home not safe?
Оно слышно, как бахкают. Когда 25-го сходили домой,
Absolutely
я
not,
себе
she
реально была.
says.
Такое чувство, как будто во двор.
She could hear the shelling, and it seemed to land in her yard. She's too afraid to go back.
Но я не хочу уезжать отсюда, кидать своих близких и уезжать.
But she doesn't want to flee and leave everything behind, including her husband. He's fighting in the war.
Do you know where your husband is right now?
Нет.
She doesn't know. She hasn't seen him in 2 weeks, but they text every day. He's barely been able to spend time with their newborn.
Я здесь в вагоне сама, в другом вагоне мама с папой.
But at least she isn't alone. Her parents live in the compartment next to hers. Her mother is a street cleaner and still goes to work every day. Her father used to run a store, but it was destroyed.
It must be hard being a new mom living in a subway carriage.
Это очень тяжело.
She says the hardest thing is bathing her son. She has to heat up water in an electric kettle, then mix it with cold water to get the right temperature. And while she does this, someone needs to watch the baby.
How's your baby doing?
Все хорошо.
She says he's fine, healthy. They already have a daily routine. They wake up and eat breakfast. Then she puts Bogdan in the pram and they take a stroll around the platform, passing by her neighbors. They come back to the carriage and Bogdan naps throughout the day. Violeta scrolls on her phone and checks in on her husband. Later, they take a bath and go to bed. There isn't much to do. But even down here, life goes on. We'll be right back. Back with Larisa, we've just reached Kharkiv train station. It's a huge, palatial-looking building with grand marble columns. Larisa will be traveling with a man named Victor, who's agreed to take care of her during the cross-country trip, despite being nearly 90 years old himself. It feels like a small win to have gotten this far, but the atmosphere at the station is tense. Just a few days before, 57 people were killed in a Russian strike on the train station in Kramatorsk, about 120 miles southeast of here. The station had been full of civilians trying to flee west.
Are you worried about the journey? It's going to be a long journey ahead.
Да, я волнуюсь, потому что...
I worry about our trip because there are a lot of shelling. When the shelling goes, we stop. The train stops.
When's the last time you left your house?
В больнице я ложилась.
13 years ago.
Is it weird being out of the house?
Вообще я, конечно, боюсь, это необычно.
Yes, it's strange to leave the house for me, but I see no future here.
Larisa has traveled before, though. When she was younger, she lived in several cities across Russia and in Crimea, and remembers her time there fondly.
Не все плохие люди в России.
I have a lot of friends in Russia. A lot of people don't like the politics of Putin. Not all Russian people are bad. There are some good people.
Lady, just tell her to shut up.
She tried to support some Russian people, and these guys don't want to hear it.
Yeah. Oh.
This is the typical Kharkiv.
It's a sensitive topic around here.
Historically, Kharkiv has had very close ties to Russia. But war and the ruthless shelling here has severed this bond for a lot of people, though clearly not everyone. Thankfully, the bickering stops when Victor arrives. He's smartly dressed, wearing a white-collared shirt and a black trench coat.
Victor Modestovich. Nice to meet you. Strong handshake.
Victor is 87. He's from a neighborhood in northern Kharkiv that's known for its Institute of Physics and Technology. He spent his career as a nuclear physicist there. But now he's been forced to leave. His home was destroyed in the shelling. But he still offered to care for Larisa on the journey to Lviv. He was a marathon runner back in the day, and is sprightly for a man of his age, still making time for a daily walk. With Victor here, it's time to make her way to the train.
They're carrying all her stuff, her cat, who's just in a cardboard box. And they're carrying her 4 men to the stretcher. And this looks like this might be the train. They've put her down in front of the train car. As people are leaving, people with dogs. Ukrainians never leave their pets behind. Well, if I've learned one thing, it's that.
The train carriages are painted blue and yellow. A small crowd of people carrying bags and suitcases are waiting to board. They let Larisa go first, with volunteer Vitaly directing the team as they pull the stretcher up the steep steps and onto the train.
It's kind of hectic. Oh, they're going up. Oh, the old man's going up. Okay, they're about to lift her up. It's gonna be, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 guys lifting her up. Now they're kind of loading her stuff onto the train. All her plastic bags, her cat. They've got her cane. It's a lot of stuff.
I hop on to see the small sleeper compartment where Larisa and Victor will spend the next 24 hours. The train cars are narrow. It's hard enough to carry bags down the aisle, let alone a woman on a stretcher. The young volunteer Kirill follows behind. He has Larisa's belongings and stows them on the overhead racks.
Okay, this must be her compartment. All her stuff is here. Her cat is here. The old man who's gonna be watching her is here. Are you comfortable? Are you ready?
Да.
Okay, yeah, they need to go. Okay, bye.
I leave them, slightly worried about how a nearly 90-year-old physicist is going to take care of a paraplegic and our cat on a cross-country train ride. All I can do is hope for their safe arrival. We checked in with Larisa and Victor a month after saying goodbye on the train. Larisa ended up in Germany, where she has found the medical care she needs. Her cat Katya was sent to an animal shelter at first, but a German family eventually took her in. Victor settled in the same place as Larisa, and they've become close friends, grateful for each other's company. In Kharkiv, the Ukrainian forces are clawing back territory. By mid-May, the military had driven the Russian troops away from the city. There's now a sense of relative peace. Those who fled have started to return. The mayor is encouraging those who were living underground, like Violeta, to move out of the shelters so the trains can run again. The war isn't over, but for now at least, the people of Kharkiv can begin to rebuild. That's it for today. Next, we'll finish the season of reporting with a conversation with Tom Wright, the co-founder of Project Brazen. Resistance: Stories from Ukraine is a production of Project Brazen in partnership with PRX. It's hosted by me, Laurel Chor. I've been reporting from the field with Armen Djudjovic and Andrei Kalashnikov. Bradley Hope, Tom Wright, and Nicholas Brennan are executive producers. Megan Dean, Subin Kim, and Claire Urban produced this episode. Sound design by Alex Portfelix, with associate producing from Julia Franchi, Adam Drake, and Francesca Gilardi Quadrio Curzio. Susie Armitage is our story editor. Cover design by Ryan Ho. For PRX, Jason Saldana and Julie Shapiro. A special thanks to Alex Guzenko, Anna Maria Valchuk, Jody Bragger, Michelle Sanders, Stanislav Strilitz, Wolfgang Schwan, Hannah Fedorishina, Eugene Kimichuk, Rowan Slaney, Neha Wadakar, Siddhartha Mahanta, and Lucy Woods. We would also like to thank the Volunteer 68 group for letting us follow their evacuation of Larisa. You can find them on Instagram at VOLONTER_68. For more of our reporting and a transcript of this episode, visit projectbrazen.com/resistance.